Good morning. It's Wednesday, December 16th. My name is Jason Stanton. I serve as senior pastor at First Lutheran in Onalaska. This is my morning musing for today. I was listening to a podcast. That's where a lot of my morning musings come from, you might notice. I was listening to The Best of Our Knowledge, which is put up by Wisconsin Public Radio as its own standing podcast. You don't have to only try to catch it while it's on Wisconsin Public Radio, but it was the podcaster interviewing Robert Moore, who's written On Trails and Exploration. And so there's this young guy who at one point in his 20s decided to sublet his apartment, sell most of what he owned, and take 6 months to go hike the Appalachian Trail, which for many is a dream. And then it rained pretty much the whole trip. And so he didn't get a lot of the vistas and views that he was, kind of dreaming of and hoping for. And instead, he really focused on the path itself. Instead of looking out and around, he was looking down a lot. And he started to wonder about pathways and trails. And so he's taken a lot of time since then studying animals and insects and fossils and ancient roads, the tracks of stars, neural pathways, all these different ways of exploring how do things that live travel in their paths. How do paths get made? And he had this great metaphor for, because I think all of us can relate to this. All of us have gone on, hikes or walks or journeys of some kind. And it's inevitable that if you're on a trail of any length, you wonder at some point, who built this part? Like, who built this thing? Sometimes you get to a trail and you see where it's going and you just ask, why is it going this way? Why isn't it going that way? That would be a smarter way for the trail to go. And he makes the point that hiking trails are built to be sustainable. So, mostly it's about shedding water. Trails typically have to avoid certain places. So it'll be sometimes where you're a hiker and you just don't want to go that way. The trail builder needs you to go that way, though. The trail builder maybe can't have the trail go over there because of the way it drains or whatever else. And so hikers can get very frustrated. And, Appalachian Trail or Pacific Rim Trail, it's called through hiking, these big long trails. Through hikers, he says, want to get where they want to go as quickly as possible. They want to follow the path of least resistance, which is a challenge to a trail builder, to get people to go where they don't want to go necessarily. And so Robert Moore, this guy, says oftentimes hikers just won't do it. They'll take a shortcut and they'll create what are called desire lines, which cut across the trail. And you'll oftentimes see these where a park or a trail will be designed in such a way, maybe the sidewalk in a park goes around in a prettier way than is efficient. And you might even be able to see through the grass, people are like, I'm not following the meandering path, I'm just cutting across, right? That's a desire line. And so he asks the question, what's the desire line in your life? Are you following simply a path that's been laid out for you, maybe by your parents or by your community or maybe by yourself and what you kind of put on yourself at a certain age? Or are you following a desire line? And is that a desire line meant to fulfill your own desires or other people's desires for you? And then you think about how a built trail is typically easier than setting off on your own, making your own desire line. And the other thing is, desire lines sometimes, if your shortcut is, let's say you're on a 10-mile trip and you think you're going to cut a couple miles off, that kind of desire line can get you lost. From a Christian point of view, I've thought about this as, are the paths laid out for us God's paths? Or are we called to cut across some of the paths laid out for us that we may follow God's desire lines for our lives. I do know one thing, that we are called to keep walking, except for the times we're called to stop walking and rest and take it in and discern our next steps forward. And then we're called to keep walking again. Keep faith alive.